Have you ever heard of a Welsh couth? Not an uncouth Welsh. It's in fact a musical instrument, and there's only 5 genuine ones in the world. This is what it looks like, and it depends on your point of view, but this one could be regarded as the 6th. It was manufactured by a remarkable man who has a talent for building stringed instruments. And it's built by Mr. John Johnston in Portland in Victoria. And we've come to Portland because of a letter from Mr. Richard Oakley of Portland, who says, I would like to ask the Leyland brothers to show the work of a local Portland resident, Mr. John Johnston, who makes beautiful handcrafted violins and other musical instruments. His work is of the highest standard, and I understand that there are a few people in Australia with this unusual talent. Could we see Mr. Johnston at work? Well, here we are in Mr. Johnston's workshops, and John, isn't it? Well, John, not only do you make these things, but you make some very unusual instruments, I see. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these ones we have on the table here?
Yes, I can, Mel. This one here is a dulcimer, and it's a very ancient instrument, the forerunner of the modern piano, and I believe that the earliest recorded history of them or illustrations have been found on very ancient Assyrian monuments.
And that's played by hammers, is it?
It's played by 2 little sticks similar to the style of a xylophone. This instrument is a Swedish Hummel, and it was popular in Sweden some 100-odd years ago, and as I said before, it was being revived in America, and they call it a mountain dulcimer or mountain zither. I cannot play, but I can give you some idea of the tone.
Unusual or historic instruments interest Johnny, but his real passion is in creating the finest violins.
How do you go about making a violin, John? What's the first step?
Well, the first step, because, is to determine what your model is going to be, and having acquired that, such as this here, which is a model of Stradivarius, 1716, then you procure your timber, which is obtained in a block like that. You'll note that it's not completely cut through. That is so that when you cut it through there, you open them out and join them up as this, and you get 2 perfectly matched pieces of timber. And the density of the wood is the same, both the same, whereas if you got it in a long board, the density of the timber further up here could possibly be different to what it is down this end. And after you trace out your model on it, you then cut it out with a jigsaw or bandsaw or fret saw, whatever you have, to that shape. And then you commence your thicknessing then, and that is you plane down with these little planes, as I am planing this cello top, like so.
Shaping the Tasmanian King William pine with great care, 65-year-old Johnny demonstrates incredible patience and expertise. He made his first violin at the age of 18, but says that it's only in recent years that his instruments have reached the perfection that makes them renowned to symphony orchestras all over Australia.
Well, that's the block for the neck of a violin, and that is carved out by the means of chisels and saws and rasps, and that is a semi-finished neck.
His great disappointment is that following a mild stroke a few years ago, he has lost the full use of his fingering hand and can no longer play the fine instruments he creates with such tender care. This handicap hasn't altered his ability as an instrument maker though, and although he's supposed to be retired, he spends almost every day in the workshop with his violin.
One that is finished. This is completely finished.
And that's a viola?
That's a viola. And
you don't really do this for commercial gain, though, do you?
No. I do this because I love making them. And to me, it's recreation. I really love making them, and it's a great deal of satisfaction to me that I can turn out a really good instrument.
Well, maybe one day the Johnston violins and violas will be just as famous as the Stradivarius. Who knows? I certainly hope so. I can say one thing, though, it's been a real pleasure to see a craftsman at work, John, and thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
And I'd like to say to Mr. Oakley, thank you very much for asking the Leyland brothers.